The RG556 is Anbernic's latest retro handheld, aimed towards the higher end of the market. Will the new T820 processor be enough to keep up with the Dimensity and Snapdragon processors found in the more recent Android-based handhelds? Let's find out as we unbox, take a closer look at the handheld, run some benchmarks for comparison, and then check out a whole bunch of games for their performance. First out of the box is the Anbernic RG556 itself. We will take a closer look at it shortly. Underneath the packaging we have a user guide which is in English and Chinese. Inside the box is a USB Type-C cable for charging. And last but not least is a screen protector and screen wipes for when applying it. The Anbernic RG556 measures around 8.7 by 3.5 by 0.5 inches and weighs 331 grams. It's available in two colours, black and transparent blue. The material is slightly different. The black case has a more matte finish, whilst the blue case looks and feels very glossy in your hands. The display is a 5.48 inch AMOLED touchscreen with a 1080p resolution. With it being an OLED display, it looks great with nice colours and brightness. On the left side we have Hall effect analogues and a D-pad. Below those are a function and return button. On the right there are gaming buttons with select and start below the right analog stick. The top has shoulder and Hall effect trigger buttons, followed by the power and volume buttons. The bottom has a 3.5mm headphone port, USB Type-C and a covered micro SD card slot. The Anbernic RG556 features the Unisoc T820 processor, which is octa-core with a mix of A76 and A55 cores. The GPU is a Quad Core Mali-G57 running up to 850 MHz. There's 8GB of LPDDR4X RAM and 128GB of UFS 2.2 storage built in. You can use a micro SD card up to 2TB in size. For communications, there's Wi-Fi 6 and Bluetooth for connecting to wireless peripherals. Powering the RG556 is a 5500 mAh rechargeable battery. In our tests, running Antutu benchmark in a loop, we got just over 4 hours. Also, whilst running Antutu, we tested fan noise and thermals. We got 60 decibels fan noise and a highest temperature of around 39 degrees C. As a note, the fan is not generally active often unless it's being really stressed out, so we had to set it to the highest speed manually to get the highest noise. The Anbernic RG556 runs Android 13, which is fairly up to date. On first boot you have a brief setup screen which pre-installs some emulators for you. I would however recommend going straight to the Play Store to update them as they were older versions. You have a choice of running the individual emulators or using the Anbernic launcher to browse and play your games. If you have games on your micro SD card then the launcher will scan and add them. Once scanned you will have a bunch of systems and games to browse and play. The software is quite simple, but it is easy to set up and use and performs very well. Alternatively, you can run the emulators individually. This will require a bit more setting up, but often, especially with the more demanding systems, the emulators are more optimised than the one used in RetroArch for example. If you do find games running slow in RetroArch, then there is a standalone emulator to help improve performance. It can make a large difference. Video output via USB-C is supported. You will need a suitable dock with HDMI output such as our DROIX SD1 or better still the NH8 hub with space inside for our NVMe SSD. Oh, and our range of portable monitors work great with the setup. Once connected, you will have an option to switch between screen mirroring or a desktop-like interface on your TV with touchscreen input on the device. The screen mirroring mode works perfectly, but we did have some minor issues with getting into settings menus or quitting out whilst playing emulators. As this is an Android operating system, we can run some benchmarks and compare the performance with other Android handhelds. We start the benchmarks with 3DMark, which tests the CPU and GPU performance. In the slingshot results we get 4736 for the RG556. It's an average score. The Odin 2, Air and 4 Pro all maxed out their scores. On the more demanding Wildlife Extreme benchmark, the RG556 gets 564. While it is the lowest score, some of the lower performing handhelds can just about run the benchmark, let alone get a score. Antutu is an overall series of benchmarks which tests everything from UI performance to the storage speeds. The RG556 has a respectable score of just under 500,000. The higher priced performance devices do have a considerable lead though. Our third and final benchmark is Geekbench, which tests single and multi-core performance. We see decent scores for the RG556. Again, it's in 4th place behind the more expensive devices, but not by massive differences. The Anbernic RG556 remains in 4th place behind the mighty Odin 2, Pocket Air and Pocket 4 Pro. Do keep in mind that the first two are at least twice the price of the RG556. However, the price difference with the 4 Pro is much closer. We tried a few different Android games including Diablo, Dan the Man, Horizon Chase and Magic Rampage. All games run just fine with no slowdown or lag. As mentioned, there is built-in screen mapping and we were able to set it up with no issues. You can see it working on Diablo here. If you are not familiar with key mapping, it allows you to map the on-screen controls to the device's physical controllers. It will let you play most games with a controller, even if they do not support one. We had some good feedback from our previous review video on our mini showcase of emulators and games without voiceover and using game audio instead. So let's continue doing that with some on-screen info for the performance if there's any issues.
Right. Watch out. Left. Ahead. Left. Right. Finish. Pizza time.
The Anbernic RG556 is overall an OK retro handheld. but the performance is below that of the similarly priced Retroid Pocket 4 Pro. But for this price difference, you do get a larger 5.48 AMOLED high resolution display compared to the 4.7 inch IPS lower resolution on the 4 Pro. Depending on your preference, you may want a larger or smaller display, but AMOLED will be IPS in quality any day of the week. We like the easy to use Anbernic launcher. It simply scans your microSD card and adds games to the appropriate system menus. It works great and is excellent to get up and running fast. However, keep in mind that for the more demanding systems, you will want to use the dedicated apps rather than RetroArch cores. The dedicated apps do require a little setting up, but the performance increase you get is worth it. If a larger and high quality display with a fairly fast setup is something you're interested in, then the Anbernic RG556 is definitely worth considering. But if you want a bit extra performance, then go for the Retroid Pocket 4 Pro. Let us know what you think about the Anbernic RG556 in the comments. Is it worth buying, or are you looking for another handheld? If you do want to buy your own Anbernic RG556, you can get yours at DROIX.co.uk or DROIX.net. Use the discount code RG55650FF for 5% off. The code expires 1 month from this review being posted and cannot be used during store sales or promotions. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to keep up to date with our latest videos. See you back in the next one.
Here!